So you want to grow hops, but you don't have a way to keep climbing up and down because hops grows tall. What are you going to do? Build a retractable trellis. That's right, folks. A trellis where you can lower and raise the top wire where the strings and the plants are attached to. We're going to show you how to do that today here at Hops World. Hey folks, my name is Max Raphael and welcome to Hops World. And tip number 45, how to build a retractable hops trellis. Let's do it. Well, before I get started, I want to remind you to stay tuned till the end of the video because this little video here shows our 16-foot V-shaped trellis. It's retractable also, and we're going to talk all about that and have plans on this and the trellis that we make today. So stay tuned till the end. So folks, here are the materials that we're using to make our retractable hops trellis. So I'll go through little by little here and show you the general materials. Starting on the left here, we have our crank, which is basically a crank that they use for a boat trailer. I got this on Amazon for 27 bucks and it actually has a 30-foot cable. Right next to that is actually a dog leash cable. It is 3/16 stainless threaded wire cable, just like the other cable. And it was only $9 and it has the two easy off and on clamps on the end. So it seemed like a bargain compared to buying the cable and making the ends. Speaking of that, we did also get 30 feet of 3/16 cable. That's 59 cents a foot at Home Depot. And you have to get the ends and the saddles to tighten them up. There's 6 of them. We have 2 of the actual adjusters so we can tighten our anchor lines. A couple of easy quick release clamps. There are 2 here in the middle couplers for our pipe, threaded. And then we have 3, I'll call them eye bolts, and some washers, and a couple other little metal plates. And on the right hand side we have 2 anchors. They were $4.50 each. I bought also at Home Depot. They're not that big, but we're going to put them in cement, in concrete actually. So here's concrete. There's 2 bags here. We have 2 more bags. There's going to be 4 holes, but I'm not sure if we're going to need that much. But I did buy 4 bags. And we have 3 10-foot pipes. 1.5-inch threaded pipe. Now, you could use just 2 and make this thing shorter. We're going to make our trellis 12 feet tall. You can make it 8 feet or 10 feet, or if you want to make it even taller, you can connect a bunch of pipes. It's up to you. So there's our materials. Now let's get to work. So we marked 2 of our pipes at 6 inches and 7 feet. And this one we already drilled. We're going to drill through all the way through for our eye bolts. Okay, so we made our 4 holes in our pipe, and now we threaded the eye bolts through the top. This is going to be the top of the trellis. And let me explain what we have here. Here we have the eye bolt. It's going through. We have a large lock washer, a flat washer rather. We have another flat washer. Then we have this little flat piece of metal that we bent up a little that has a hole so we can hook our anchor. Then we have a lock washer and a nut. It's just a matter of tightening this down, making sure that the eye bolt is turned this way so that the cable is going to run through this eye bolt over to the other trellis and down. And this will be aimed down at a 45-degree angle to hook our cable to. So we tighten these two up, and we just have to extend the pipes and we can mount our trellis. All right, so the next step would be to cut the pipe in half and use this threaded coupler on each end to extend our trellis so we can get more height. So these are 10 feet long. We're going to cut this in half and add 5 feet. 3 feet will go in the ground and we'll be 12 feet above the ground. Let's do it. So now it's a matter of taking the piece that we cut in half and threading it into the full 10-foot length. And we connect both, and we're ready to put them into the concrete. Woohoo! Well, before we actually set the poles up, I decided to attach our anchor line to the top of the pole here using our anchor cable that we had bought and our cable loop, and I'm not sure what they call these. They call them wire, rope, clip, and thimble set. I call them saddle to tighten cable. But regardless, what we do is we loop the cable through our hole and put the saddle. The saddle protects the cable from chafing over the years. And then we put our saddle and tighten it up. There's a couple tips here. One I learned from building trellises, hops trellises. They say you never saddle a dead horse. What that means is that this side is the saddle here, and you never put this side on the end, the dead end, which is the cut end, which in this case would be a dead horse. The other thing I learned, if you notice here, after the first saddle, I put 3 twists in the wire and I put another saddle. I never used to do that, but I went to Yakima Valley and saw their trellises, and 99% have these twists, so I'm sure it helps. Maybe someone who builds trellises for a living could actually explain why. So we connected one on this side. We're going to connect the other one on the other side. That way we don't have to connect these when it's up in the air. So we're going to connect the other cable using our other saddle and protector here, thimble and loop, and then we're going to put these in the ground. Let's do it. So hey friends, it's officially tomorrow morning, bright and early. You could probably hear the birds. I love it this time of day. Just me and Mother Nature and my hops babies. So we're going to put our pole in the ground. I wanted to get back forward to see how tall it is. It's actually 15 feet tall when it's out of the ground. The height of our trellis at this end, the other end, our trellis is 16 feet tall. But these poles are going to go in the ground about 3 feet, so they're going to be 12 feet out of the ground. I already mixed our concrete mix. I'm going to just fit this in the hole just to give you an idea. I have a level, and the concrete itself will keep it level once I get it filled. So pretty simply, just place it in the middle of the hole. Turn our anchor wire the right way. You want the eye hook facing that way because the cable's going to go up and across. So I'm going to just lean this down here and start backfilling. So there we have it, post number 2 and post number 1 in the ground. Now to make the anchor holes. And how do we decide where to put the anchors? Well, folks, the ideal would be a 45-degree angle mathematically, but you really don't need that, especially on a small trellis with only 8 or 10 plants. If you're building a huge trellis, even our trellis, the big trellis here, we have most of the cables at less than 45, but the further away from the base would definitely be stronger, but I really don't think it's necessary. So what I did was I had bought that piece of cable and I cut it in half, and at this point I'm just going to pull out to as long as I can to where I know I can have enough cable to put an anchor in, and that's how I'll pick a spot. So the anchor will fit all the way over here. Not sure if you can see me in the picture, but we go straight in line with the other 2 poles, and we put our hole here for the anchor. So we use a regular post hole digger, 6-inch diameter for the anchors, going approximately 24 inches deep. We're actually going to put the top of the anchor a little bit below the surface, so that way if someday we're not using this anymore, we can just cover them up. And in the big holes for the pipes, we went 3 feet deep. Same thing with the post hole digger. So the object here is for the anchor to sit down into the hole just below the level, the surface of the ground, so that if I don't use this, I can just cover it up. You can even go maybe a hair deeper, a little crank, and then these are our tensioners or tighteners that will hook here, and then we can tighten up the tensioner on this cable, the anchor cable that's over here. It goes up to the top of the pole. So we need to backfill this with cement, and we're going to leave just the top of the anchor above the ground, above the cement rather. And then eventually we'll backfill this with dirt after we have everything hooked up, and the only thing you'll see sticking out will be from here on up. Good. Only left a little bit, about 1 inch. Enough for a hook. Just double check. Perfect. Now do the same thing on the other side. So folks, basically what I did was I took our tensioner and I adjusted it all the way out so we can tighten this and adjust the anchor cable. Then I took one of the thimbles, the little kits, and I put it through the eye with the cable running around here. It's kind of a protector so it doesn't wear. And then with the, I call these the saddles, they tighten them up, and then 3 twists and another saddle. So this basically, it's hooked here, and then you tighten this up, and you really only want to tighten it up just to get tension on it so that the pole stays level. Because when we put our horizontal cross wire on the top of the trellis, it's going to pull these poles tight. So there we go. Okay folks, so now what we're going to do is attach our crank, it's basically a boat trailer winch, to the pole. And to do that, we're going to use one straight bolt and one U-bolt. So we used the existing hole that we had made in the pole earlier for the straight bolt, and then we use a U-bolt in the holes on the winch. Okay, so up the ladder, but I just have to go up and run this wire through the eye and go down the other end and do the same thing, and that will be the last time I ever climb a ladder with this trellis. Woohoo! So it's just a matter of unwinding the existing cable from the winch and feeding it up through the eye bolt in the top of the pipe and running it across to the other side. Now, just hook the end of this cable to the other cable, and we have a working trellis. Tie our strings and crank it up. Okay, so on this end, which is the non-working end, we just put the eye bolt through with 2 washers and a nut, and we turn the eye bolt actually vertical as compared to up top where it's horizontal. And then, real simply, we ran the cable up, over, connected to the other piece, and we hook it on. Now on the other end, if we crank up the cable, I'll show you the cable sagging now. It'll come up. When we go to tie our strings, our first string is going to be right up here. I can't get to that. So what I do is I disconnect this little hook, tie a string to this, and let this go up and pull the string all the way down. Another little tip is I use electrical tape on the cable, especially on this big trellis out back here, every so often to mark where I have to put the strings. So in this case, maybe every second or third plant, I'll put a piece of electrical tape so that when I lower this cable and I tie the strings, we'll be able to put them in the right place. So now I'm going to do a test run. I'm going to tighten up the cable going across. I'm going to tighten up my 2 anchor cables and take a look. Then we'll lower the trellis completely, tie our strings, connect them to our pots, and be done. All right, so as you saw, we cranked up the wire and pulled it almost tight. I'm just gonna give a couple turns on the tensioners to tighten them up. I want to basically keep the pipes vertical, and once we want to tie our strings on, just a matter of lowering the cable now, tie our strings, crank it up. If we need to look at a plant during the year, we can lower it, and especially when we want to harvest. No more ladders! Woo-hoo! Okay, the final product. Here is our anchor coming out of the ground. We backfilled the holes, and our 12-foot tall trellis. Remember, the anchor wires don't have to be real tight. They really just need to keep the poles from pulling into the middle as you tighten up the wire. Basically to keep the poles vertical. We tied the strings on. They come down here. This is going to be our temporary yearling trellis for some plants that are going to be in pots. Down this end, we have the brains of the operation. So basically, this is a boat trailer winch that we bought on Amazon. It was 27 bucks. There's other ones for like 21 bucks, but this one had a 30-foot cable, so we took advantage. A few more bucks. So it goes up the cable from the winch through the eye bolt at the top, over. It actually connects to another cable. You could just extend this cable all the way depending on how big your trellis is going to be. So we got another cable it's connected to and runs down. We're hooked on that pole about 5 feet, 6 feet off the ground. The pole goes into the ground where we had the concrete we backfilled. And then our anchor, same thing on this side. We cover it up. We're going to cut this loose end off and put a piece of electrical tape because it's a little long. So last thing I want to mention with the pots, and you can do this with plants even in the ground, if you push the pots forward, you can push them way forward and have a lot more string on your plants to be more than the 12 feet or however long your trellis is. I put the pots not in line with the post so that I can actually move them if I have to cut the lawn here. If they're straight in line with the post, the strings will be too short to move out of the way. Then you'll have to weed whack or hand weed. So what I do is I cut the grass on the right side of this side here, the trellis, and I take the pots and I move them real quick over here, and I cut here and I move them back. But if you put these pots way out here with an angle on the string, you can get 2 or 3 feet more length for your plants to grow higher. So there it is, folks. Our medium size hops trellis retractable. Never again will I have to climb a ladder. Right next to our large 16-foot hops trellis that's shaped in a V. We will show you plans of that when we build it. But before we show you the big trellis, I'm going to show you the plans that I made for this medium-sized trellis before I started. You can feel free to copy these plans as you like, and you can change them, make it higher, make it longer. If you think of any great ideas, please put it in the comments below so it'll help us all make a better trellis in the future. And as far as the tools that we used to build this trellis, first we had a 6-inch post hole digger, a shovel, and I used a little kiddie pool to mix the concrete. But you can mix the concrete right on a piece of plywood or in the grass. As far as hand tools, I used a level, a battery-powered sawzall or reciprocating saw, a drill battery-powered with a 3/8 bit, a ruler and a marker, a big channel lock to tighten a pipe, and a couple wrenches for some of the smaller screws and bolts. Not too many tools needed on this one, folks. So here is a complete material list. And the total cost at the end was $225. Now, I suspect you could cut corners if you have some pipe laying around, or you do some hillbilly engineering to get these costs down, because the 3 pipes actually costed over $150 themselves. Okay, folks, here's our larger trellis. It's 16 feet tall, and we made this for our breeding program. All these plants, 99% of them are our own plants that we bred from seed. Most of them bigger ones from last year, and over here tons of little ones just starting this year. But let's talk about this trellis. What we have, we start here with our anchors. Are actually chain that goes in the ground 2 feet, and then it's coiled up like a cobra at the bottom, and then we put concrete on top. The reason I use chain, that way I can hook the tensioner anywhere along the chain. Made it a lot easier. Then the same thing, a tensioner, and in this case we use 1/4 inch stranded cable, a lot stronger. There's a plant that's growing right up the anchor. You can take advantage of the anchors. This is our actually Superboy male, believe it or not. But anyway, at the top there we have a T. Now, we connected the T's all the way across our trellis, but you don't have to. You could just run some 3.5 foot pipe out the side. We use 2-inch water pipe. It comes in 21 foot lengths here, standard. I had it delivered, which made it 16 foot out of the ground. I actually dug the holes 5 feet deep, probably overkill. But there's an eye bolt up here where the anchor bolt is, or the anchor wire is connected, and then here out at the end there's another eye bolt that has our trellis cable that goes across. And over here we have another one, the same thing. We'll move in a little so you can see a little better. Right there. In between each post, I actually ran a cable. Now this is a little different than the trellis that we just built. And this really creates tension on the whole trellis without putting tension on our wires. I would suggest that if you make a real long run and a bigger trellis, to run a cable in the middle of the T, right here, across, it's fixed. And then that way you can tighten up this whole trellis real tight. Because if you run long strands, like this is 55 feet, you could go 75 feet. If you have a lot of heavy plants, you're better off adding that extra cable. Let me talk about here. The post here goes in the ground 5 feet with a 6-inch hole filled with concrete. And there's 4 posts. Like I said, we ended up connecting the pipes across, but you could just make each T individual. Coming down the other end, which is kind of the thinking end, the brains I call it, you can see the wire comes across. Now on this end, what I did was I added a little pulley. Maybe you didn't need to. Hopefully you can see that. And our cable comes down, goes through that pulley, which makes it a lot easier to lower, less tension, and comes all the way down here. And in this case I put the cranks at the bottom. There's a lot of plants going on here, but we'll go over to the one next door. I'll show you that. So you can see it's a double system, and instead of putting the crank on the front here or in line with the plants, I put it out the side. Now one thing I would say, instead of putting the cranks down so low, definitely put them up higher. There's no need to have it that low on this end. But it's the same setup, that both wires go up and then through a pulley and across to the other side of the hop yard. And every time I have to tie the strings, and I just lower the string. At harvest time is really simple. So there it is, folks. You could expand this trellis, like I said, at least 75 feet, I'd say, with no problem. Obviously, you're gonna have to make it stronger than what we made this sort of 12-foot trellis. Here we use 1/4 inch and 3/16 cable. So, hang in there and I'll show you the plans. So as you can see, when I first designed this trellis, it was just going to be separate T's. Then I decided to connect them all. But here's both ends of the trellis, and then a detail on the pulley system and our anchor. And feel free again to copy these and use them and alter them as you see fit. Okay, there you go. So what are you waiting for? Off to the home center to buy some materials. But seriously, folks, you can change this around. You can make it a little lower. I wouldn't suggest much, but I've grown plants only 10 feet high, only 8 feet high. You can actually get dwarf plants, but you can definitely make it taller and bigger and actually make a whole hop yard with retractable trellis. If you go 75 feet and 75 feet, wow, I would love to see your ideas and comments. If you have any better ideas, let's share them for the whole hops growing community. Thanks for being with me here, folks, at Hops World. If you liked, put a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel up here. Check out one of our vlogs coming up this week. And cheers to life.